Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Today is STEM day. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Well, some of those things might go into it, but probably a bit of luck and judgment as well. We're making a new STEM for Project Ariel Bantam. And you may recall from previous videos that the one that came with the forks, this one, does not suit our purpose. So we're going to make another one. And I've been using the height gauge largely to map the various features where we're going to put them. You recall that I previously blued it up and scribed where things needed to be. So I've just been transferring that onto the notebook so that we can map it out and go and do some turning. We've got a piece of EN16T in the lathe, chosen for its high tensile qualities. It comes in the high tensile steel bracket. It's got good shock resistance, good resistance to fracture, and you know, as I say, it is a high tensile steel. So because we're going to subject it to tensile loads, pre-tensioning our bearings, and also going down the road, you know, we're going to subject it to shock loading. So a really good choice of material, and one I've used before in industry. I know it quite well. It's a good all-rounder, quite frankly, for applications such as this. The T denotes that it's been hardened and tempered by the foundry where it was made, so it's ready to go. We don't have to do any treatments to it. So ideal for our purposes. We can just chuck it up in the lathe and go for it. How does it compare to other steels? Well, fairly popular steels. EN8 would be another good all-rounder, used quite a lot in the automotive industry. If we compare EN8's UTS, which is ultimate tensile strength, if you were to put it in a tensile tester, that is the load that the token would break at. You're looking at about 850 newtons per millimeter squared compared to 1,000 for the stuff we're going to be using. So it's a stronger steel. The yield strength, which is take you back to school in the tensile tester, when the material necked, i.e. it went past its elastic limit and it would no longer go back to its original length. That's the yield strength. EN8, 500 newtons per millimeter squared, and the stuff we're going to be using today nearer to 700. So, you know, it is a stronger material, a good choice I think for this application, and one that, because I'm going to be riding the bike after all, one that I'm happy to put my put my life in the hands of, shall we say. So that's the reason for choosing it. Hardness wise, it is again harder than something like EN8, which comes in at 250, 255. Brunel, that is. EN16 coming in about 300. But we're not too worried about that because we're not going to be using it for, you know, we're going to be subjecting it to friction loads. So hopefully an explanation on why we're using the material, and we can get on over there and do some work. Right, that is now stone cold, so we can measure it up. I've cleaned it as well. There's no gunk on there. Micrometer spotters. This is my Moore and Wright 25 to 50, and I have checked it against the standard, so I know that it's zeroed. And I'm not a ratchet guy. I'm a feel it kind of a guy. So there you go. I am getting 28.6. Yeah, absolutely spot on. 28.6. And slight caveat, I'm expecting a tiny bit of taper because I know that there is some wear in this machine, and even though we trued up the tailstock, I'm expecting a little bit, because this machine was built in the same year I was built, 1973, and it's done a bit of work in its 52 years, but it isn't worn out, but there is a little bit of wear to it. So there we go. We could probably tweak it out, you know, turn some test diameters and tweak it out with the tailstock, but I'm not expecting that much, to be honest with you, maybe a couple of hundredths. Yeah, I'm getting 28.1 28.615, not quite 5. A Badger's Nadger over 28.61. So not bad really, considering it's almost what, about 240mm length. So yeah, I'm not going to complain at that at all. And the reason for it is because the machine's done probably most of its work in about this range here. Don't know if you can see that, I hope you can. So when you start getting a little bit closer up to the chuck, you get a little bit less wear, and when you get all the way out beyond this bar towards the tailstock end, you get a little less wear as well. But you know, I'm not going to complain. We've got two diameters, two sort of critical diameters to turn. One about here that's 15mm long and will be about 27mm in diameter, and the same at this end, again about 15mm long, 27mm. Those are for the inner races of the tapered rollers, and they need to be right. They need to be pretty accurate. But over 15mm, we're not going to have a problem. You know, we're almost compensating for the wear because we're turning such short lengths. In between the two diameters, we're going to go down to about 25.5, and then at the end, where it goes into the lower yoke, we're going to go down to about 25.5 because that is the diameter of the original stem, and that will be with the grip range of the clamp on the lower yoke. So that's, we're going to replicate that. At this end, we've got a 25mm diameter to turn right up here for the thread for the adjuster nut. So we'll get some blue on and we'll crack on. The blue is just a visual guide. We'll scratch some rough, you know, well, not rough, we'll scratch in some start and finish lines, but everything's going to be measured using the travel dial, which is micrometer accurate from this end of the bar. So I've got all the numbers over there on the notebook. I think you've already seen them, haven't you? Yeah, so that's where we're going to go. The only other question is, when do we bore it? And there's sort of two ways of thinking. We could bore it now, and by doing that, any stress relief that we might create in the bar will be gone, and when we turn our diameters, we know that they're absolutely spot on because they're the last thing we do. But then, kind of, you know, we're not on a centre then. We're using the tailstock centre in a bore and not quite as accurate and not quite as supportive. So it's a bit of EN16. I don't think it's going to do a banana job just by boring it out. So I'm going to do the diameters now, bore it out last, and trust that it's a pretty decent drop of material and it isn't going to wildly stress relieve itself. So that is the plan. That's what we're doing. So let's get on and do it. Right, so I've marked the first feature. You probably can't see it, it's quite faint. So we can kind of idiot check ourselves. That is bang on 55 according to the scale and ends at 70.5. So that gives us a 15mm feature. Absolutely spot on. So we know that we're accurate. I knew anyway, but I just wanted to throw the steel rule on the floor 3 times. Anyway, I just wanted to show it to you guys. So that's where we are. Right, we're back. I've charged the camera batteries up and I've set the lathe up to cut the thread. I'll give you a quick run through of how you do that on this machine. I'll try not to waffle on too long, or this could become quite long-winded. So this machine is equipped with a Norton gearbox for cutting threads. So it'll cut metric and imperial. In there is a gear train. Depending on what that gear train is set to, determines the range of threads that the Norton gearbox will cut. So with the standard gearing on, it will cut metric threads, and there's a chart on here for metric threads and metric feeds. If you put the universal quadrant, which is basically a a plate that holds different gears onto the machine and change the gearing, you can cut imperial threads and have imperial feeds as well. Now, they're not on the chart, they're in the book, so we don't need to worry about them today because we're doing a metric thread. So we've got the standard gearing on, we've got the gear train. There's a little handle here that you pull out and it engages a pinion. That puts the machine into the gear cutting range, and now we're on the Norton gearbox. So we've selected 1mm pitch because that's what we want to cut. So that's the top lever in position B and the bottom lever, the trunnion, in position A. So we're set up on the gearbox to cut 1mm. Go over to the business end, if you like. Let me just do some dodgy camera work so that you know it's me, not an imposter. We've got a specialist threading tool in the tool post. Let me get that out for you. It's an external threading tool. Helps if you want to do it all the way, Dean. So it is an ASR 16 Kennametal, and I fitted it with a 1mm metric threading insert. So that takes a lot of the work out of it for us. We don't have to do any grinding to grind up to get the thread geometry onto a piece of tool steel, and we don't have to set the compound slide over at half the included angle of the thread like you do when you're single pointing with a ground up tool, because the insert does all the work for us. It literally is formed to go straight in and cut the thread at the right geometry that we want it to. It's got all the clearances and everything calculated into it. So that makes our life an awful lot easier. Now, cutting the thread, actually physically doing it on the machine. The first thing that I'm going to do is literally just let the tool scratch the surface of the marker die that I put on there. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to be sure of my settings. And so what I'll do is I'll come in, once I've done that, I'll come in with the thread gauge. And if the scratch lines line up with our 1mm thread gauge, we know that we're cutting the right thread. If not, then I've made an error somewhere setting up the machine, or something's wrong with it, and I need to do something before I ruin my part. So, you know, it's always best to check, idiot check the work, particularly when the idiot doing the work is me. So, yeah, that's what I always do. The next thing that I'll explain about cutting threads. Now, this is a metric machine. Let me just move you down a little bit. It has a metric lead screw. It's 4mm pitch, so it will cut threads up to 4mm pitch with the gearing that's provided. Because it's metric, that means that metric threads that will divide into the 4mm pitch can be cut by disengaging the half nuts, the feed nuts. Now, why would that be advantageous? Well, if you were doing a really long thread, like you were cutting a lead screw or something like that, you could, if you wanted to, take the tool out at the end of a pass, disengage the gear, the half nuts, wind the carriage back by hand, re-engage the half nuts and go back in and do another pass. That is so much easier when you've got a thread counter dial, and I haven't got a thread counter dial on this machine. Didn't come with one. I do have one that I bought for it that somebody made, but I've never fitted it. I've never got round to it because I don't cut super long threads, or I haven't had to so far, so I've never got around to doing it. So what I do is I leave the half nuts, feed nuts, half nuts, whatever you want to call them, engaged for the whole operation, and never disengage them until the thread's finished and I'm happy with it. And what I do is I just use the reverse function on the machine. I wind the tool out and then I power the machine back in reverse, and that way the thread never gets out of sync. Another top tip, if you're going to be single pointing a thread on the lathe, is to have a system. Get yourself a system and absolutely stick to it. Don't deviate, don't answer the phone, don't do anything while you're cutting the thread. Just get on and do it. And what I do is, once I've taken a cut, So the tool has moved to the end of the cut into the runoff area. Stop the machine, and now on this machine it doesn't stop dead, so you've got to get into the sort of experience of when to hit the stop button so that it'll coast into the runoff area and stop. Then I zero the scale, zero the chapter ring. I then wind the hand wheel out one full turn, so I go from 0 backwards back to 0. Reverse the machine, bring it back to the beginning. Nothing's come out of gear, everything's still in sync. I then wind on again one full turn, and that takes the backlash that I've just put into the top slide feed screw. It takes it out of it completely because it's a full turn. Back to where we began. I can then put on some more cut, take another pass, and then I keep repeating that process. If you forget to zero out before you wind back, it can be a problem. You know, basically because you don't know how far to turn the wheel to go one full turn. So that's an important part of the ritual for me, is remembering to zero out. Otherwise, you know, if you could remember what number it was on, you could go one full turn, couldn't you? But 0 is a really easy number. You're not going to go wrong. So that is my single point thread advice, and that's all I'm going to give you. That it works for me, and you might be thinking, why do you go through all that trouble? It works for me, you know, and I don't want to trash the parts. So that's what I do. Anyway, let's do this first pass where we're just literally going to lightly scratch it, and I'm going to have to move you because I've got to get to the controls of the lathe quickly so that I don't crash it. But hopefully you'll get to see, and then I'll bring you in and show you it close up, and then we'll do a pass, and then I'm going to switch you off because I need to concentrate on this, and I'll bring you back when we are getting somewhere near to a completed thread. Right, let's just move you out the way a little bit. You watch from over here, and hopefully you'll get to see everything that happens. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we're in a low gear, which we are. So the lathe is going to spin nice and slowly, 60 RPM, and we're going in the right direction because it's a reversible, as I say, it's a reversible lathe. Make sure you get the right. So I'm going to wind out, and I'm going to wind back in. Get all the backlash out of the there's not much on this machine, it has to be said, but get it all out. Right, it's just touching, just scratching. So I'm going to come off, and now we're going for a pass. We're going to engage the half nuts. Off it goes. It looks like it's going really slow, but when you're cutting a thread and you're concentrating, it seems to speed up. It's the fastest 60 RPM in your life when you've got a critical part on the machine and you're trying not to ruin it. Right, we're getting close to the end now, so we're going to have to be a bit careful with the stop button. I reckon about there. Yep, that's perfect. It stopped right in the middle. So let's have a look and see if we've got a 1mm pitch thread. Yep, we do. So the machine is set up properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on the tailstock, bit of tailstock cam, and let you watch a pass, and then I'm going to get on and get the most of it done and then bring you back towards the end. So let's switch you off, get you up on the tailstock, and then go for it for real. Right, not the best light, but hoping that you can see that. So we're going to treat that pass as a live pass, and we're going to do everything that I just described. So I've zeroed out the incoming, I've zeroed out the scale on the handle, so I'm going to go out 1 full turn. So from 0 all the way around, back, where is it? There it is, 0. And then we're going to back the lathe up. So here we go. So a bit of a laborious watch for you, I'm guessing, just watching the lathe reverse back, but I'll just show you this one pass and then you get the idea of how I do it. It's not a very deep thread, this either. Generally speaking, with these indexable tips, there's a flat. You can see the bit that sticks out of the tip. You probably can't see it on camera, it's a bit too fine to discern. And then there's a flat. And pretty much when you're down to the flat part, you're at full depth on the thread. Right, so we're just about to come off the back of that now. Switch the machine off. Back in 1 full turn. So we're into our sort of ritual now. So back in 1 full turn, back to 0, and then we are going to put a little bit of cut on. Here we go. And now we're going for it. So I've got the cut and tap. We'll give it a little bit of a squirt, and here we go, cutting threads. I've got my finger hovering over the stop button. Make sure we don't overshoot. Perfect. Okay, it is a rinse and repeat action now until we've got something resembling a working thread. Right, you can see that the tool is at the end of a pass. I've not even wound it back yet. On the last pass, the adjuster nut, this thing, which threads onto the stem, almost started. It almost started. So I cut the, I reduced rather the amount of cut by 50%, and did another pass. And it's absolutely bob on. I'm not going to do any more than that. There's zero play in that. That is exactly what I wanted. It threads on. Absolutely lovely. A little bit of swarf in there, that's all that is. So I just need to deburr it with some, I usually use fairly coarse Scotch-Brite. It just gets the sharpness off of it. If that doesn't work, you can use a little bit of production paper, but I think Scotch-Brite will do it. But that is absolutely perfect. I'm so happy with that. There's no rock in it at all, and obviously when the stem clamps that up, it'll clamp it solid. So we're going to consider that a win. So we can take the half nuts out. Don't have to do any more thread cutting. But I always say it, the lathe is the heart of the workshop. I mean, who has an M25 by 1 die and a die stock big enough to turn it in you know, most workshops or most sort of home workshops don't. I don't have one. I don't have any dies that big, so you know, if you haven't got a lathe, how are you going to cut that thread? It's one of the most satisfying jobs to do in the workshop. So if you've got a lathe and you've never cut any threads with it, go and practice. Go and cut some threads on some bar stock, and you know, find a nut that that you want to replicate the thread for. Cut a thread and wind the nut on it, and yeah, it's a really rewarding thing to do on the lathe. So we just need to just take the edge off the end of that thread there, and then we just need to deburr it a little bit, and that's another stage done. Right, as you can see, we're back at the bench, and I've got one of the bearings, one of the tapered roller bearings. I'm just going to measure the inner race, because we have to do the diameters on the stem for the bearings next, and we need them to be the right sort of fit. So we need them excuse me, we need them to we don't want an interference fit, because obviously we've got to get the lower roller over the upper journal so we can get it down to the bottom. So we need a good fit, but we need a not too good a fit, as we'll never get it past it. So what I'm going to do is measure these, and they are absolutely spot on. 27 dead. Let's do it again. There should be 27, but it just shows you the tolerances. Let's turn it around a little bit. It just shows you the tolerances they're working to, doesn't it? Because that is absolutely bang on 27 according to my micrometer anyway, and my telescopic snap gauge. Yeah, that's right on the line. That's absolutely spot on. 0. So 27 millimeters. Not so much as a badger's nadger. Right. So if we machine the journal surfaces to 27 millimeters, and then we can just paper them down, I think, until we can get the bearing to be a sort of just a tight push. Right, I've taken a couple of cuts. We should be a badger's nadger away from the size of the bearing. Let's have a look. I was at 27.58, and I've just taken half a mil, so we should be at 27.08. So let's have a look, see how we're getting on with this machine and its accuracy. Yeah, absolutely spot on, 27.08 on that one, and we've been still getting a little bit of taper, but about half of 1/100th of a mil over the distance that we're cutting. So I would expect this, because I've done 2 passes, so I would expect this to be there or thereabouts 100th difference, given the taper of the machine. Yeah, it is not quite 100th, but we'll call it 100th. Near as, you know, near as say so 27.07. Just a little bit bigger. So that kind of bears out the amount of taper that we've been getting on this machine. So the bearings shouldn't go on just yet. No, well, so I need to do a little bit of polishing now. I think we're just going to polish it down until it is just the bearing will just start to go on, and then I think certainly for the lower bearing, if we warm it up, it will go on. We'll get it over the top, and then we'll get it onto the bottom. But yeah, it's hard to describe. I know the fit that I'm looking for, but I can't put it into words. So I'll bring you back when I'm, getting some. I should really move the camera stand before I switch the camera on, shouldn't I? Anyway, not to worry, not to worry. Right, we're just about where we need to be. I'm just going to put a bit of lubricant on these things. So I've just been doing a bit of polishing, and I can get this bearing now. Oh, come on. It's going to call me a liar now, isn't it, and get stuck. Anyway, I can get this bearing on. I can get it past the upper diameter, the upper journal, and it will just start on the lower one, which I think is good enough. It's going to call me a liar, I'm afraid, but oh no, it's going. Come on, you know you want to. There we go. That's the fit I was after, certainly on the upper one at least. Now on the lower one. Yeah. It will go on. It will go on. I'm not going to shove it all the way on because I'm going to get it off again. But it will go on. So that is good. That means that we're not going to have any headache in our bearings when we come to fit them. So I shall worry about getting those back off again. What I've got to do now is I've got to put a groove. I'm replicating the old stem. I don't know why I'm doing it really, I just am. There's a groove. It's kind of like a telltale to when you've got the stem in far enough. And I'm going to put that in. It serves no earthly, really, but I don't know. I just want to put it in just to finish the job off. So that's at 223.5 from this end. It's a 3mm groove, and as luck would have it, the parting tool is 3mm wide. So I'm going to put that in. Once we put that in, we can part it off. And once we've parted it off, we can re-chuck it and start putting the bore in. So, the potential to mess it up is still there, don't worry. It could it could still end up in the scrap bin yet. But so far so good. Parting off shouldn't be an issue. This machine parts off reasonably well, even though this is a fairly challenging material for it. I don't envisage any problems parting it off. Well, we're just about parted off here, and you can see how well this machine parts off. It just eats this stuff. There we go. It's not as though it's a bit of aluminium bar. It's a fairly decent piece of material. Yeah, Kennametal parting tool, and this machine just never seems to let me down. So there we go, we've parted off our part, and we've got to put a hole through it. I put the groove in. I didn't show you that because it was me putting a groove in, so not the most exciting thing in the world, but we're a step closer, aren't we? Right, we need to get set up. In fact, I think what we'll do is we'll test it in the stem before we go any further, because we've not actually had it in the stem yet, have we? So we'll do that, and then we'll go back to the lathe and do. Okay, I'm painfully aware that I keep calling the yoke the stem. This is the stem, the thing that we've been putting all the work into. So let's give it a go. Goes in. Could have been a little bit tighter, but never mind. As long as we've got the grip range on the clamp, we should be okay. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. We've got our bit that threads on top. We'll have our spacer, and then we'll use that to preload the bearing. Just make sure, hang on, let's take that off. This is more for me than anything else. I just need to measure that I've got enough at the bottom. Basically, this is to make sure I got my numbers right. Yeah, I did. I'm happy. I'm happy. So our bottom bearing will go on there, obviously. That'll go up into the lower part of the frame tube, and then we'll put our upper bearing in the other way around. We'll put our spacer on, put our adjuster on, then the yoke, and adjust it all up. And then that part of the adjuster is clamped when you clamp the yoke up at the top. That gets nipped so that it can't wind off the adjustment. So yeah, that should work, shouldn't it? We won't know until we get it all assembled that everything's in the right place, but yeah, if we did our measurements correctly and we did our numbers correctly, it should work. So now we need to put a hole through it just to take some of the mass out of it, but yeah, I'm largely happy with that. You know me, I'm never 100% happy with anything that I do, so really we could have done with making it out of tube, but we didn't, so we didn't have any, so we made it out of the solid. But at least I suppose we get to control the wall thickness. Depending on what size hole we drill, we're in charge of the wall thickness, aren't we? So yeah, small wins. Like I say, if I could have found a piece of tubing with the right wall thickness, the right delta between the internal and the external, it would have been better, but that's what we've ended up with. Here it is. A finished stem. Bored through at 18mm, and I have to say it's plenty light enough, but we've got, you know, lots of wall thickness, and that is going to do the job for us. So providing it fits, of course, and I've done the measurements right, there's only one way to find out, isn't there? So let's get it installed.